everybody. I'm Jamie Kale Miller of Pandora Astrology, and with me is...
Hey guys, it's Julia Mikos, and I'm joining in from San Francisco.
Yes, and I'm here in Berkeley, California. And today we want to talk to you about this year, 2020's springtime of relationship retrospection. And the reason why this is so important to talk about is because this year there will be a relationship planet retrograde continuously from February 8th to June 25th, beginning with Juno. Juno goes retrograde. It spends quite a few weeks retrograde, and before it's even done, Venus goes retrograde. And then Juno stops being retrograde, and then Venus continues for some time. So this is quite a few months and basically covers all of the spring from very early spring through very late spring. And spring is definitely a time when relationships are very much a theme anyway. So what I want to do with you today is I want to show you some visuals to help you understand what's going on. And Julia and I are going to make some suggestions about when to handle it certain ways, how to handle it, and what you can expect. Okay, so I want to begin by showing you some of the movement of Juno and Venus and the Sun this year, 2020. And before I even do that, I want to say that these are the relationship goddesses of the chart. Venus's theme is love, romance, erotic connection. And Venus is also generically social. Venus is friendly, warm, connecting. Venus is a true partner. Juno is more about contractual relationships. Juno is about serious, long-term relationships, and that can be spousal or domestic partner, but it can also be business relationships. And so Juno is very partnership oriented as well, but they have these slightly different but very overlapping meanings. So imagine both of these ladies retrograde at the same time. It's kind of crazy, right? And it definitely means, as retrograde planets always mean, a journey into the past, a retrospection. But this retrospection is about our relationships. So if you go into this spring already in a relationship of some duration, you can expect changes to that relationship. And it's really good to prepare yourself and be open to those changes and get in the driver's seat so that you can have a say in what those changes are instead of being taken by surprise and perhaps having things go not as you'd wish. Now, if you are single and in a dating mode during this time period, you might find that you get some shifts inside yourself about what is the nature of love, and what is the nature of my lovability, and what is my type, and what do I look for in a relationship, and what is the difference between my type to fall in love with and my type to marry, and how can I look inside myself and look at my past relationships to make some positive changes going forward about what I look for in my future relationships so that I can find something that satisfies me both in terms of love, romance, erotic connection, and also in terms of commitment and true partnership. So that's really what we all stand to get out of this relationship retrospection season here in 2020. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to show you this happening in time. And here we've got a chart with the Sun in Capricorn. It's set for January 1st. Venus is shown at 15 degrees of Aquarius, and Juno is shown at 17 degrees of Libra. And now I'm going to let the chart run to February 8th because that is the day when Juno goes retrograde. And here it comes. And already Juno has started to move a little bit slower. It's the end of January. And as we move into the beginning of February, Juno has started to slow down in preparation for going retrograde. And here on the 8th, you see the little red RX symbol that means Juno is now retrograde. Now, the next thing that happens in the cycle is that Juno will come into an opposition with the sun. So you'll see the sun crawling forward while Juno is traveling backwards, and the sun and Juno are going to meet up in an opposition, and there it is. And it is official on April 2nd. So there you see it happening at 13 degrees of Aries. Now, definitely what this means is if you have something in your chart at 13 degrees of Aries or Libra, or the signs that square them, Capricorn and Cancer, then you're really going to feel that. But we're going to get around to interpretations in a moment. Right now, I just want to show you the cycle. So watching things continue, I want to make this go a little faster because the next milestone is on May 26th. Yeah, there we go. Whoops, I passed it because that was really fast. So back on May 26th, we see that Juno goes direct. So watch this little RX symbol go away. Zip, whoop, there it is. By May 27th, Juno is direct. So Juno's retrograde period lasts from February 8th to May 26th, and that is a heck of a long time to be engaging in a deep relationship retrospection. But interpretations in a minute. Now, I want to go back to the beginning of May because I told you that this overlaps with Venus's retrograde period. So here's the beginning of May, and there's Venus traveling ahead of the sun, and we can watch it traveling ahead of the sun, but by the middle of May, where is this? May, yep, already by, say about the 6th or 7th of May, Venus is slowing down. You can see that the sun is beginning to catch up with it because Venus is going slower. And boom, there it goes retrograde on May 13th. So Venus enters her retrograde period while Juno is retrograde, and that's going to be double damage, right? So the next milestone for Venus is what I like to call Relationship Clarity Day, and that's on June 3rd. This is the equivalent to April 2nd, Juno opposing the sun, which you remember it did at 13 degrees of Aries and Libra, which I would call Marital Clarity Day. When a connection between the sun and the relationship, this is the truism, when a connection between the sun and the relationship planet happens while the relationship planet is retrograde, that is going to be the clarity day in the middle of the retrospection where you go, ding, light bulb overhead. Oh, that's what I'm supposed to be doing while this planet is retrograde. So it's the day of clarity, and it's not like you're out of the woods, but at least you start to feel like, okay, now I know what I need to fix. Okay, so Relationship Clarity Day is officially on June 9th, and there it is. That's weird. June 3rd it was. Boom, there it is. So Venus is at 14 degrees Gemini retrograde, the sun is at 12, and boom, the sun hops over Venus, Venus back hops over the sun at 13 degrees. Interesting, right? 13 degrees is showing up again. Could mean something. Not to say that 13, isn't not that kind of meaning, like the unlucky number. No, not about that. Okay, so, and then later in the month, Venus goes direct, and boom, there it is on June 25th. So, so that's the whole time that something is retrograde. February 8th to June 25th, at least one of these goddesses is retrograde, if not both. So let's go back to the beginning of all of this and go through it bit by bit. And I'm going to set this chart for February 6th, and we're going to watch this stuff unfold, and we're going to talk about what it means as we go along. So Now, in early February, Juno is slowing down and it goes retrograde on the 8th. Julia, can you say some things about what it means, how it feels, and how to handle it when Juno goes retrograde and we go into this relationship retrospection and
Sure.
while Juno is retrograde?
Okay, yeah. Well, retrograde means that a planet is, from our perspective on Earth, apparently moving backwards across its celestial path in the sky. It's not actually happening because in our solar system, all the planets are moving forward, but it's an optical illusion. And that usually invites us to start reviewing and going over and rethinking some of the themes of whatever that planet or asteroid represents.
Yeah.
And in Juno, it is the partnership planet par excellence. And that is, definitely big with romantic partnership. However, other partnerships may also come under consideration as well, such as business partnerships, too.
Yeah. So we're going to start rethinking that stuff. We're going to start re-examining it. And we might be forced by circumstances to re-examine it. So if you've been, soldiering on in your relationship, even though you know that there are real problems underneath it somewhere, but you've just kind of been coping and getting through, this could be the time when something outside of yourself or outside of your household triggers a a look at the past, a look underneath the surface. And the very best way to handle this is to face it head on.
Yeah.
Now, part of what you might want to consider in terms of your response is that Juno is retrograde in Libra. So, Julia, what are your thoughts about the fact that Juno's retrograde in Libra?
That really enforces those Juno themes even more,
Right.
Because Libra is a partnership sign, and it's a sign, just stepping a little bit beyond that definition. It's a sign about fairness. It's a sign about equity. So those could also be themes that come up, like, are things fair in my long-term relationship? I decide to stay at home and help raise the kids a little bit, but am I getting everything, while my partner is the breadwinner? Are things kind of evenly distributed in terms of our responsibilities and what we're supposed to be doing? Those types of things.
Right. Or maybe it's time for a change. Maybe I want to get back to work, or maybe my partner wants more time with the kids.
Yeah.
And so I think that Libra, as you say, yes, it has to do with balancing and fairness and symmetry. I think of it also as having to do with leveling. Like, Libra is very much about the adult-adult relationship, the relationship of equals. And so you might feel that you need to look at the roles in your relationship and ask yourself, do you feel like all the things happen that need to happen in this relationship in terms of give and take, and are people fulfilling their roles, and do their roles need a redefinition? Yeah, and as we've been saying, this can impact your business partnerships too. And I think a lot of people who have business partnerships, who run a business with somebody else, it feels like a marriage. It has a lot of emotion attached to it. It has a lot of feelings of possessiveness or even jealousy. And there's a lot of law behind it, right? There's a lot of legal factors, right? And so who knows what might need to be renegotiated, But I think, again, because this is in Libra, and also let's move on to on April 2nd, Marital Clarity Day, because I think that this is really where, because the sun falls in Aries and Juno falls in Libra, that this is where an honest, truthful, leveling conversation really needs to happen. So you can look for that around April 2nd. And if around February 8th and during the rest of February, you gradually came to realize, oh my gosh, my relationship needs work, And if you spent some time resisting that, as we all do, because we're human, then by the time, it's getting to be the end of March and heading for April 2nd, you really might want to think to yourself, what is the conversation my partner and I really need to have? And how can we approach it in ways that are honest to make that Sun in Aries happy and leveling to make that Juno in Libra happy? So after this date, there does continue to be some time while Juno is still retrograde, but post clarity day. And it doesn't really go direct until May 26th. So there's this whole section of Juno retrograde after, after you've got some clarity and that light bulb has gone off over your head and you've maybe started to have some of those useful conversations. And in this phase is where you want to really do the renegotiation, maybe change the rules, maybe agree on what those rules are. Because another thing to remember is that a lot of times human beings go into relationship with assumptions that they assume are shared, but aren't. For example, the assumption that both parties understand what monogamy means and share the same values around that. Or the assumption that this is going to be, a conventional marriage that very much follows the rules of our culture. And where maybe one partner in the back of their mind is thinking, I might want this to be, not quite so conventional at some point. And those are discussions that should really be had, even if they're uncomfortable, even if they're painful. It's important to at least talk about all these things. So on May 26th, Juno goes direct. And Julia, do you have any thoughts about, what people should look for when that happens?
Well, when Juno goes direct, or when any planet goes direct, it will kind of break you out of that reviewing cycle so that all of the material, all of the things that you've been thinking about can finally start really be acting upon in a much more sort of effective way.
Yeah, there starts to be this feeling of forward movement, right?
Mm-hmm.
And even momentum starts to build. And that can feel really good. You can feel like, finally, I figured out what I was doing. We figured out what we're doing. And now we can move forward. So all of these phases happen again with Venus in an overlapping pattern. So let's look at the timing of that. On May 13th, while Juno is still retrograde, Venus goes retrograde. Now, Venus retrograde is the one that astrologers usually talk about because it's still the case that most astrologers don't use the asteroids. And this is because the asteroids, Juno being one of them, were discovered in the late 1800s, and we didn't even have tables of motion for them until the 1970s. And it was in the 1970s that we began to be able to use them. And it was then that Demetra George began to develop a body of work, a body of information culled from her practice with them about what they even mean. So the asteroids are newcomers to astrology, but they are so valuable, so important, and just really fill so much color into the big picture of a natal chart. So when astrologers talk about relationship, retrospection periods, they're pretty much talking about Venus. So out on the internet, you could probably find a lot of information about this year's Venus retrograde period, but it wouldn't necessarily include the whole picture with Juno retrograde's connection to that. So on May 13th, Venus goes retrograde. And so let's watch that happen. Here's May 12th. Venus is ahead of the sun. And really for at least a week before that, more like a week and a half or two, Venus is already starting to slow down. And you know that it's slowing down because it's moving less than a degree a day after a time. Here it is at 15 degrees, 26 minutes. 16 degrees 1 minute, so it's definitely moving quite slowly. And as we get to May 13th, it turns retrograde, and there it is. So, Julia, what would you tell people when Venus goes retrograde? What would you tell them to look for?
Well, I would tell them to keep an eye out on their exes, because exes just might start popping in their lives out of all sorts of strange places.
Oh my God, yes.
I would also tell
Such a
them
theme.
to hold off from spending any large amount of money on a luxury item, or maybe even doing anything radically new with their appearance. Like, oh my God, I'm ready for a pixie haircut or something. Just wait until after the retrograde.
Yeah.
And then, and what else would I tell them? I would tell them that it's a good period for starting to think through what your romantic needs are, and whether they're being met and how they could possibly be met. And you don't necessarily have to come up with any answers right away, because it's a period of contemplation. And once Venus goes direct, then you can start kind of taking action on what those needs are.
Yes. It really is good to engage with the retrospection when a planet is moving backwards. It's way better than, trying to push the river.
Mm-hmm.
So this one's in Gemini. Do you have any thoughts on that, Julia?
Yeah, Gemini is a sign that has a lot to do with mental activity, communication. So maybe a lot of that retrospective period is going to be how communication is working in your relationship. Is it working in your relationship, and how can you make it better?
Yes, I think that's definitely going to be a theme. So, moving forward through time, Venus is going to conjunct the Sun, and this is it's on June 3rd. While Venus is retrograde, the Sun catches up with it, and they form a conjunction. And this is Venus's equivalent to Juno's marital clarity day. And I'm not going to explain this in a really big way, but I will say that Venus's version of this involves a conjunction to the Sun, and that's because Venus is closer to the Sun than we are here on Earth. We will never see Venus oppose the Sun because Venus and the Sun will always be near each other in our sky. Juno, Juno, however, is further out in the solar system than we are relative to the Sun. Therefore, we can see Juno oppose the Sun in our sky. And that is what happens on marital clarity day. So one is a conjunction, the other is an opposition, and it has to do with how the solar system is arranged. So on June 3rd, Venus conjuncts the Sun, and that's relationship clarity day, which also happens in Gemini. And this seems to me to be about the conversation and the communication. This particular Venus retrograde period is going to have to do with cleaning up the ways you communicate as a lover and beloved, and with your lover or beloved. And it may pertain to a particular relationship that you're in, or it may just be about how you do communication in relationships in general, and an opportunity to clean that up, get a clearer view on it, and make it better for the future. And as Julia said, definitely be aware that old people from the past may pop up and contact you because they have something that they want to clear with you, or something feels unfinished in that relationship, or you might feel the same. If you're the kind of person who's like, ends a relationship, closes the door and the vault completely, you're dead to me, then Venus retrograde could be quite uncomfortable for you if somebody pops up wanting to clear with you and you're not open to clearing with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that can be super uncomfortable. Sometimes it's worth doing. Sometimes, you just gotta say, look at the hand because the face ain't listening. Now, Venus retrograde finishes on June 25th, and we'll see Venus go direct here. And at that point, we might begin to feel some relief from all of this, and you'll notice that it spent its whole retrograde period in Gemini. So again, those communication themes are very much going on. Now, before you start crying in your tea about, oh my God, relationship retrospections, they really suck. Oh, it just damaged my relationship so hard. I just want to point out that these relationship planets are direct most of the time. Venus's cycle is a year and a half. So for most of a year and a half, it spends its time direct, forward, definitely signaling that relationships can proceed forward most of the time. They just cannot proceed forward quite so efficiently when Venus is retrograde. And Juno's cycle is even longer. It's somewhere between 3 3/4 and 4 1/4 years long. And during that time, let's see, how long is Juno going to be retrograde? February, March, April, May, about 3.5 months out of about 4 years is not that bad, really. So let's just remember that and keep it all in perspective and not freak out. Okay, Julia, I feel like we said everything we wanted to say here. Is there anything you wanted to throw in that you didn't get to say?
No, I think we're good.
Cool. Well, audience, I hope you enjoyed this and learned some stuff and became better able to cope with this spring's relationship retrospection. And you can find this video along with other videos about the news of 2020 on our YouTube channel, Pandora Astrology, in our 2020 news playlist. And you can always find the news of the month on our monthly forecast at Pandora Astrology. And in particular, there is a Juno retrograde video that you might want to go watch because it has a lot of connection to this one here today. And you might not know that we do horoscopes, and you can find them on our YouTube channel too. And until next time, we'll see you around the cosmos. Bye.
Bye-bye.